Most studying fails quietly, not because students are lazy, but because the brain mistakes familiarity for learning and stops encoding new memory. This false confidence has a name: the illusion of competence. When information looks familiar, the brain assumes it's learned, even when recall is weak. Recognition collapses under pressure. Exams don't ask what looks familiar. They ask what you can retrieve without prompts. Your brain is economical. If information is never retrieved, it's tagged as low value and quietly removed to conserve energy. Highlighting feels active, but it rarely forces retrieval. The brain notes exposure, not necessity, so memory strength stays shallow. Ease is deceptive. When studying feels too smooth, attention drops. Without challenge, the brain receives no signal to store information deeply. Memory follows a use it or lose it rule. Neural pathways that aren't activated weaken quickly, even if you spent hours creating them. Cramming exploits stress chemistry. Cortisol boosts short-term recall, but blocks the slow consolidation required for durable long-term memory. Without spaced retrieval, the brain treats crammed knowledge as temporary. During sleep, it's deprioritized and largely discarded. Time spent studying is a poor metric. What matters is how often the brain is forced to retrieve information independently. Passive exposure creates familiarity, not mastery. Watching, reading, and listening feel productive because they demand almost nothing from memory. Effort is not a flaw. Mild struggle is the signal that tells the brain, this information matters. Keep this. Studying without retrieval is like filling a container full of holes. Input increases, retention stays low, and frustration builds. The fix isn't more time. It's changing the signal you send the brain, from exposure to repeated retrieval. Once you understand this, studying stops being a grind. It becomes a process of training memory, not feeding it. The real shift is simple but uncomfortable. Learning is not input, it's output. What you can retrieve defines what you've actually learned. Consumption feels productive because it's easy, but ease keeps the brain passive, which limits encoding and weakens future recall. Retention begins when you stop looking and start remembering. Closing the book forces the brain to do real work. Psychology calls this desirable difficulty. Mild struggle is not failure. It's the signal that upgrades exposure into memory. Effortful recall strengthens retrieval strength. Each successful pull rewires pathways, making future access faster and more reliable. Rereading trains recognition. Blank page recall trains reconstruction. One builds comfort, the other builds competence. Imperfect recall still counts. Even partial retrieval strengthens memory more than perfect rereading ever could. Mistakes are data. Each gap tells the brain exactly what to reinforce next, improving efficiency instead of wasting time. Retrieval signals importance. The brain stores what it's asked to produce, not what it merely observes. Testing yourself early creates prediction error. That surprise sharpens attention and dramatically improves learning depth. Each retrieval is a rep. Like physical training, repetition under load builds durable strength over time. Discomfort is the cost of retention. Avoiding it feels good now, but creates problems later when memory is required. Active recall compresses knowledge. Fewer, stronger representations outperform large piles of weakly stored information. This is why retrieval-trained students perform better under exams, interviews, and real-world problem-solving. Once you prioritize retention over consumption, studying becomes lighter, faster, and far more effective. Effective studying starts by closing the book. Before reading, ask yourself what you already remember. Retrieval comes first, not last. This forces active recall. The brain strengthens memory when it reconstructs information, even imperfectly, instead of recognizing it passively. Reconstruction matters because memory isn't stored like a file. It's rebuilt each time you retrieve it. Teaching is a powerful test. If you can't explain something clearly, your understanding is fragmented, not finished. Teaching forces compression. You're not learning more content. You're organizing it into fewer, stronger mental representations. Those gaps are valuable. They show exactly where to focus next, saving time and preventing false confidence. High performers test themselves early. Pre-testing creates prediction error, which sharpens attention and primes learning. When the brain is surprised, dopamine marks the moment as important. That's when learning accelerates. Flashcards, practice questions, or blank page recall all work if they force retrieval. The tool matters less than the demand. Rereading feels safe because it avoids failure. Retrieval feels risky, but risk is what builds durable memory. Each recall attempt strengthens retrieval strength. Over time, answers come faster, clearer, and with less effort. Always pair recall with feedback. Retrieval builds memory. Correction refines it. This loop, retrieve, check, adjust, is the fastest path to mastery with minimal wasted effort. Training retrieval under mild pressure prepares you for real exams, where cues are limited and recall matters most. When studying trains retrieval, exams stop feeling unfamiliar. You're practicing the exact skill you're being tested on.
Forgetting isn't a personal failure. It's a default brain feature designed to remove information that doesn't prove its long-term usefulness. This pattern is called the forgetting curve. Without retrieval, memory decays fast, even after long, focused study sessions. Retrieval interrupts forgetting. Each successful recall flattens the curve and buys more time before memory fades again. Spacing works because memory is rebuilt, not replayed. Each retrieval rewrites the trace stronger than before. Psychologists call this reconsolidation. Old memories become flexible, then restored in a more durable form. Long sessions feel serious, but short reviews signal priority. The brain learns what matters by repetition, not exhaustion. Cramming compresses time. It creates a single fragile memory trace that collapses quickly once pressure disappears. During sleep, the brain prunes aggressively. Information without repeated retrieval is downgraded or removed entirely. Spacing succeeds because it aligns with biology. Memory strengthens when recall is repeated just before forgetting occurs. A simple rhythm is enough. Learn once. Recall briefly 2 days later. Test yourself a week after without notes. 10 minutes of spaced recall often beats hours of last-minute study because timing matters more than duration. Marathon sessions overload attention. Spacing respects cognitive limits and preserves mental energy.
Spaced repetition feels slower, but it compounds quietly. Each session adds stability instead of temporary intensity. This is why spaced learners feel less anxious. Their memory was built gradually, not borrowed from last night's stress. When you respect forgetting, memory starts working for you instead of against you. Most people don't fail because studying is difficult. They fail because starting triggers resistance before any learning even begins. The brain avoids large commitments. High perceived effort creates friction, which delays action regardless of long-term goals. The solution is lowering the entry cost. Tiny starts bypass resistance and allow momentum to take over naturally. This is the 2-minute rule. Starting small reduces psychological friction and increases the likelihood of continuing. Habit stacking removes decision-making. When studying follows an existing routine, it no longer competes for attention. Consistency forms automation. Repetition trains the brain to expect the behavior without requiring motivation. Identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as someone who reviews daily, Studying becomes self-expression, not effort. Willpower fluctuates. Identity persists. Systems anchored to identity survive stress, fatigue, and busy schedules. To prevent burnout, study in cycles. Short periods of deep focus align with natural attention rhythms. Breaks are not weakness. They allow attention to reset, preserving quality across sessions. Multiple short sessions outperform one long block. Distributed focus maintains clarity and reduces mental fatigue. Ending early protects tomorrow. Finishing while energy remains trains the brain to return willingly. Small wins compound. Each completed session reinforces the habit loop and strengthens confidence. Over time, starting feels lighter. Resistance fades because the habit no longer feels optional. When studying becomes automatic, progress stops depending on motivation and starts depending on systems. The real advantage isn't intensity, it's consistency. Small daily retrieval builds memory that doesn't collapse under pressure. When exams arrive, prepared students don't rely on adrenaline. Their memory was built long before stress showed up. Each small review sends a signal. This matters. The brain responds by keeping the information accessible. Memory isn't strengthened by urgency. It's strengthened by repetition, timed across days and weeks. Last-minute effort looks heroic, but it's fragile. Calm consistency compounds quietly and reliably. This process isn't about discipline, it's about design. Systems outperform motivation every time. When studying fits your brain, resistance drops. The behavior feels natural instead of forced. At that point, starting no longer requires effort. The habit initiates itself. This is why retrieval-trained learners perform better under exams, interviews, and real-world problem-solving. You don't need longer sessions. You need cleaner signals sent to memory again and again. Over time, memory becomes stable. Information stays accessible without panic or cramming. Discomfort isn't danger. It's feedback that learning is actually happening. Studying stops feeling like a fight. It becomes a quiet, repeatable process. This approach scales beyond school into careers, skills, and lifelong learning. Show up briefly. Retrieve often. Let time do the heavy lifting.